Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. So today is our first Monday of the month, and this Monday I always do a free little painting session on our Art Rave page, and it is for everyone to enjoy. It's going to be up on the Facebook group in the videos for a while, and I thought I would share this morning, because we just finished our 4th of July weekend, and I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I just love this middle of the summer time to just enjoy this kind of like fleeting time that we have. We live near a lake, so I love spending time on the lake, so I thought I would use that as inspiration for today's painting. So I'm just going to say good morning to everybody, and I'm glad that you're here. So this is also a very special week because we have our painting membership is open, and the painting membership is a low price for more paintings than you can possibly imagine. So it's really an all-inclusive group that share their paintings, share their progress. It's open to all levels. So Art Rave has always been something for beginners, but over the years, of course, many people painting with me have improved their skills and gotten better. So I like to include instruction for all levels so that if you're an intermediate painter, you're still finding things to learn and be inspired by. And if you're an absolute beginner, then you can follow along on the very easy step-by-steps and do the best that you can with where you're at. And we always encourage that and really watch people grow in this membership. So we're just coming on our 1-year anniversary, and this week we are going to be only opening the doors until July 7th, and then they'll be closed until just before the holidays. So we have a closed membership so that when it's closed, we can pause our marketing efforts and focus on our group. We focus on getting to know each other, starting some painting projects, encouraging each other to take those first steps, and really getting to enjoy a painting practice. And we pour all of our love and attention into our members. So, and if you're not quite ready for the membership, then there is a free Facebook group and this morning mini once a month where we do it for free, where you can just try out our paintings. You can try painting with me and see what you'd like to do, and then just get a tutorial once in a while, because I offer those tutorial videos also on the website. So this morning I have some beautiful images that I pulled up, and what I like to do with the minis is, good morning Donna and Janet, hi. What I like to do with the minis is I like to take you for a couple minutes through the process. So this is invaluable because when you understand the process, then you start approaching your own paintings, your own original paintings in a different way. I take you through this process every morning mini or every mini so that you can kind of see that searching process and the sketching and designing part, and then the thought process that I go through before I even start the finished painting. And then the painting itself, I break it down. Okay, so whether you're painting with me this morning or just watching, welcome. I hope you have something yummy to enjoy. I am drinking a matcha tea latte with blueberry tea. And I love my little morning quotes on my tea wrapper. It says, "In order to be remembered, leave nothing behind but love." That's very wonderful. And that's what we want to do today. We want to leave nothing behind but love. So I'm going to turn my camera around. Hello, Anne. Good morning. I'm going to turn my camera around and share with you my quick little reference search. And then we're going to do a little quick sketch to plan out our painting and make sure that it's original as possible. And then we're going to paint it. Okay, so we're going to do all that in just 1 short hour. And believe me, it goes by very quickly. Hey, Kathy. Hi, Marge. Okay, so I hope everyone's had a great morning so far. I'm going to move my tea away from my water cups because otherwise I may just accidentally dunk. And I hope everyone could hear me okay. My microphone was off my head. Oh my gosh, if I ever get my microphone on, why do I keep forgetting that? It's terrible. Get so excited about my paintings. Okay, so I'm going to turn my camera onto my desktop, and yay, morning studio time. And I'm going to tell you, if you haven't experienced painting in the morning on a Monday, I don't think there's anything more exciting to start off your day than to especially start off your week with, you know what, eating dessert first. Okay, just don't save painting for the weekend. Not that that's not wonderful. It's a wonderful reward to paint on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. But you know what, starting off Monday morning with painting just feels so indulgent and a little naughty because, of course, I always have a ton of things to do on Monday morning, but I start my morning with painting, and I love it. And it's little, and it's an hour, and I could be doing lots of things in an hour that are not as productive, but instead I'm painting with all of you, and I love it. Okay, so I was looking up sunsets, and especially on lakes that are familiar to where I'm living. I think it's wonderful to be inspired by your area. Like, don't take for granted that where you live is interesting not only to you and people who live around you, but it may also be very interesting to people who don't live in an area like this. So I'm just pulling up some different, so now this is getting into paintings, but I want more photographs, and I'm looking for a lake and a sunset and some simple grasses. So I want to have an original painting. So to do that, I want to look at, when I want original painting, rather than looking at images and being totally taken in by one image, which is very easy to do, I want to see what is it that I like about these images. So let me get my sketch pad out, and I'm going to show you how I kind of start to do get to a new page. Okay, so let me get a pencil. So what I'm going for today is, let's see, pencil, here we go, is I want to have a sunset. Okay, so I'm going to just write down, this is my goal, sunset. I want it to be on a lake. Okay, I know that. I want some grasses in the foreground because I think that'll be fun. I want some distant trees. Okay, so a distant tree line is important because that's how all small lakes usually have a distant tree line. Distant trees, tree line here, I'll put tree line. And of course I want color. So I definitely want this to be sometimes I like things to be super subtle. Like this is beautiful and soft. But I thought today it might be fun to do something with a little bit more color. But see, this has some of the cattails and grasses. It has the distant tree line. Save to photos. Now here's a beautiful example of some color. There's purple and oranges. Here's another great example of great color. So you can decide what colors you want. Do you want to have a range of colors, or do you want to have more of a single color? Like this one is more oranges and yellow, so it's more analogous, which is basically three colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. You could go with a purpley pink sunset if you wanted to go purple. I was actually thinking of oranges. I love these purples now that I'm looking at them, but when I first was on here, these warm browns and oranges I thought were so pretty. And I think that those are very dramatic to achieve. And they're easy to achieve because sometimes purples can be a little tricky. And for a beginning painter, purples can get really, okay, let's see. Allie is posting something. Oh, a Google search. Okay, hold on. Ooh, someone's sharing a link with me. Okay, hold on, Allie. Let me see what that looks like. Let me go to Facebook And hold on, Allie, I'm going to look up what you just shared with me. Let me go to our post here. All right, here we go. So let's see what Allie's sending me. Oh, there's some canvases that are on sale. Oh, thanks, Allie. So that's a great link. If anyone wants to check out some canvases that are for sale, maybe they're on a discount. Let's see really quickly. Okay, wonderful. 9-pack of 4x4s, and looks like they're on sale for $10. Thanks, Allie. So everyone who wants to check out that link, you can go there and check out that link. Thanks, Allie. Let me see what anyone else is saying. Let's see. Oh, so Anne was asking where I get my 4x4s. So my 4x4s I order on Amazon, and I'll share that link also, because they come in a box of 14 canvases and easels wrapped individually, just like this. And I think they're about $23 or so, $24 maybe for 14. So that's where I get my canvases. Somebody was just asking. And I like them because they are a little thicker, even though I do like the canvas boards also in the 4x4s. Canvas boards, you can get a giant pack for way less, but I really like the easels. So if I ever, sell these or display them in my house, I think they just look tremendous with a little easel. All right, so let's go back to our cattails. Boink. All right, so I'm going to show you the photos that I have. So I have my little list of to-dos. These are the things that I want. And now that I've screenshotted everything, I'm going to go to my photos and share with you what I have photographed. Okay, so this was the first image that I really was drawn to because I loved the color. And this is a professional photograph. See, it says Kurt Johnson Photography. So let me just talk for a minute about copyright. When you're online and you're looking at all these images, you have to really be aware of where you're getting your image from. It could be a professional photographer or a professional artist. So you don't want to, unless you're just doing it for learning, which is most of you are, so I want to let you know that if you copy a photograph, it's absolutely fine to paint something for yourself that you copy off of the internet. That's how we learn. But you don't want to sell it or promote it if you're at that level as your own work, because that is copyright infringement. So if you're just learning and it's just for you, I'd say go to town. If you are at the level where you're selling or promoting your work or putting your name on your artwork and selling it as your own, or even if you teach classes like I do, you want to make sure that you're trying to be as original as possible. And if you must copy somebody, contact them and ask their permission. You'd be surprised at how many people would give you permission. I've done that before, and very popular artists have given me their permission to use their style or a painting that they did in one of my classes, believe it or not. Okay, so this painting this photograph I really love for the color. And I'm going to use this idea for the color reference. I love the way the cattails are silhouetted, or the grasses. And then this one is just great because it shows, a little bit of cattails. It also shows the tree line a little bit more prominent. It shows some different cloud pattern, whereas Kurt's photograph, it's very blurry. So we might decide which one do we want. Do we want to have crisp clouds? Whoopsie. It's one of my friends with my dog. There we go. So like this one has some beautiful cloud pattern. And I'm saying cloud pattern because it doesn't necessarily have to be the same cloud color. It could just be the way the clouds are moving across at an angle. And I kind of liked this one also. I don't know why. I do like the color in this one too, but I'm going to go pretty bright. Maybe because of the water. I like the way the water's a little bit rough. Okay, so now that we have all of our little, I'm just seeing who is here. Hello, Sue and Miranda and Cynthia, Carol, Marge, Deborah. Well, welcome to our painting session. All right, so now that I have my little list, I'm going to do a quick sketch. and I'm going to try to capture what I liked about those different images, but create my own. Okay, so I'm going to do my little thumbnail sketch here. Now these thumbnails are meant to be very rough and just get your ideas down on paper. They're not meant to be perfect. So let's see. Do I want my horizon line high or low? Question number one. Let's see. I think I'm going to go a little higher. So I'm going to make my horizon line a little higher than the midline. Okay, so I want this to be a little bit more about the grasses. So I'm going to go higher than the midline, because you never really want to divide your canvas straight in half. I definitely want my little trees along the back, so I'm going to do my little tree line back here. Okay, see, just scribble it in there. I love the big setting sun, so I'm going to put a big setting sun here, off-centered. Maybe I'll put it a little lower. See, this is why we do a sketch, because this is where we make decisions. I'm going to put it just a little lower, only because I don't want it so close to the edge of my canvas. So it can be like right by my, just like it's touching the trees. And then I have to decide, okay, so I'm going to have my water. And looking at my other pictures that I screenshotted, do I want land below here? Wouldn't it be a bad idea to have some, you know, foreground land, like just little silhouette of some of the ground? And I'm just going to start putting in some of my cattails. I want different lengths. The cattails actually go pretty straight. They're not that crooked. And I also love the grasses. So the grasses might go high, and they're also going to go in front here. I want to have some low and high. I want to have some that are, I like when the grasses are bunched and then they kind of scatter out. So I'm going to make it really clustered on this side so that it balances out the beautiful sun here. So I'm going to have some grasses here. And then maybe just one crazy grass kind of going in front of the sun. Do I like that? See, this is what we decide when we're sketching. What do we like? Where do we want these grasses to go? That might be distracting. Maybe I'll move it down to here. It is kind of neat seeing it cross over the sun though. All right, so I'll have to come back and decide on that. How much grass do I really want? So let's do this in, let's do another little one really quickly, a smaller one. Do I want less grass or more grass? So you can do as many of these as you want, and then you can get more and more of that decision down for yourself. I'm going to try to see if I have my grasses a little more staggered across the front. I want to have a few along here, but I also want to have a cluster here. So I'm going to just put a few more little, maybe cattails here and grasses. Okay, I kind of like it a little bit more simplified, but I don't know, let's go. And then I have my ground in there. I guess both of these work. So I'm getting some, see, you start feeling yourself out, like what do you like a little bit more? And you can spend more time on your sketch. For the sake of time, I'm going to jump into my painting, and I think I have enough figured out that I'm going to get started. Okay, so for our paints, I'm going to use a brown underpainting for sure. This painting has a good amount of warmth to it, and our brown is going to be very important. And I'm going to do orange. So I'm going to keep the color palette pretty simple. I'm going to do brown and orange. I'm going to need some deeper red for the flaming sunset that I want to create. So I'm going to get a orangey red, which is cadmium red medium, or fire red. And now I'm going to use a tiny bit of black, but when you're painting a very bright orange painting, you can also use the complement to this red in order to get a gray or a darker red. So I'm just going to put a little bit of ultramarine blue on my palette in case I want to darken my red without black. So whenever you use the complement of a color, you can darken it. Sometimes black is the easy solution, but sometimes it's kind of fun to experiment with another color, and usually the color to darken or to deepen something is its complement. And I need white. Okay, so I can see the comments too. So if anybody has any questions about this painting or about the membership that's open just to Wednesday, so we just have 3 more days of the membership being open, and you can cancel any time if you want to try it out for a month and check out our Facebook group. Choose any painting you want from our library to paint this month and just join in the summer festivities. Feel free to do that. And then if you have to get back to, you know, your busy fall and you want to suspend your membership, you can do that, and you can maybe come back a little later on. Okay, so let's get the underpainting painted. So I'm going to just use my medium brush and a little bit of the burnt umber, and let's get our beautiful underpainting going. So for this underpainting, I am going to do horizontal strokes just because it's a sunset, and this is what I'm going to be doing for the main painting. So I'm going to just start practicing that. We're going to be doing lots of horizontal strokes for our sky and our water. And this is really going to be, I'm going to make this as simplified as possible because I want you to achieve wonderful results and still be pretty impressed with yourself. It's my goal. Okay, so there's my brown underpainting. I should do this before I do the sketch. I forget about that all the time too. I just jump right into the sketch. Good morning, Cheryl. All right, so while this is drying, I'm going to, I'll share with you one more time our references. So I'm using this painting as my reference, this photograph rather, as my reference for color and for simplicity. And then I'm using this composition as my reference for background trees. I like the way there's more grass on this side and then just a little on that side, but I'm going to make my sun right in this space here. Okay, so I'm going to put my sun right there. Kind of like here where there's a space between the grass, that's a good place for your sun. I also like this picture because it shows how there's solid grass below and then cattails coming up from it, versus just like here, you don't see the ground. I kind of like seeing a little bit more of the ground in my particular picture that I'm planning. It's also nice seeing the reflection here. You can see the tree line and then you see the reflection of the tree line, how it's dark above the water line and below. So I might do a little bit of that too. Oh, I like this too. So this is something that is interesting detail. So this is a photograph. Now do you see this dark tree line? We're going to do that. And then there's the shadow. But do you see this line going across? that's just the water. It's probably rippling a little bit, or it's maybe the wind is blowing, but it's catching the light. And what I like about that is it divides the top from the bottom, so it's not one big gigantic blob. And when you're like this, see, you don't have that line there, but as an artist, we can add that line, because that's what we do. We find what works, and I'm going to add a little line right there because I think it looks much better. See, this photograph almost has no reflection, probably because it's so far away. So do you see all those observations you can make from references? You make those observations, and that's how you create your original painting, is you decide what do you see that you like, and then you put those in your paintings. This one also has a little bit of reflection here, and it fades off here, but you can go further across if you want to divide your reflection from your tree line. Okay, let's shrink you back down. Why aren't you shrinking? There we go. And this one, I think I just like the way the cattails had this little bit of grass in here. All right, so those are our references. Just wanted to share that with you again in case you came in a little late. And looks like our canvas is mostly dry. Okay, so to start with our beautiful colors, I'm going to get really crazy bright on the sky, and I might need 2 layers. So I'm going to use orange as my base color. So I want you to think of even a sky is something that you can break down into a base coat, highlights, and shadows. So for my base coat, it's going to be orange. This is a very orangey sky. So I'm just going to jump in and just paint the sky orange. And my horizon line is right here. So just get orange down. I know this is going to be a very bright sunset, and I want it to look natural, but I want it to be bright. Now, bright doesn't have to be cartoony bright. Bright can mean vivid. So I'm not going to make this a cartoony orange. I wanted to make it more of a muted orange. So I'm going to use a little bit of browns in my sky. Now I have the brown behind it. That is also darkening my orange, because acrylic paint is translucent, so it is affected by the paint color beneath it. Excuse me. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little bit of highlights. So there's the base coat. So while it's still nice and moist, oh, you know what I forgot to add also is a little bit of yellow. I'm going to need some yellow because we need yellow in our sunset highlights. So there we go. So I'm going to take I'm going to get this extra orange off my brush. So I'm just wiping it off. I'm going to get white and yellow, and I'm going to start putting some highlights in here. So I'm just going to put a couple little highlights across. And remember, my sun's going to be over here, so I'm going to get a little bit more highlight where my sun's going to be. So I'm lightly brushing this. When you brush it lightly, you can start blending. So I didn't mix the white with orange because I'll get a peach. So if you want to, I'm going to try and lower my tripod a little bit more so you can get closer up. If you mix white with orange, you're going to get a peach. And I want to keep this very orangey, so I'm going to mix it with white and yellow. I need a little bit of white because the yellow is too transparent. And these are all characteristics that I'm telling you. I'm sharing the qualities of the paint because when you're painting, if you don't understand the qualities of the paint you're using, then it can be very frustrating. And I've been painting with these same paints for almost a decade now. So I have really gotten to know them, And then I tell you and I share with those little details so that you can, so that once you understand the qualities, you know how to manage them. So orange and yellow, they're very transparent. So if I put plain yellow on here, you wouldn't even see it. It would disappear. Now the white is very opaque. So when I add a little bit of white to the yellow, it makes the yellow a little bit more opaque, which gives me that nice creamy, see that beautiful creaminess that I want. So now I'm going to add a second layer of yellow and white, and I'm still going to just soften it lightly. Okay, so there we go. So there's my highlights. Now I'm going to work on the shadows. So the shadows for the sky are the deeper shades. And those deeper shades, I want to bring out the reds in the sky. So I'm going to get nice and red near the bottom. So I'm going to get a little bit of red. This is fire red or cadmium red medium, depending on the brand. And I'm going to use a tiny bit of brown, just a little bit of brown because I don't want it to be too crazy fake red. I'm going to go right along the horizon and start blending it up into the, hold on, I got some water on my, so a little bit of, a drop of water ran down my brush, and when it hit the canvas, it started taking some of the paint off right there. And that's what happens if you use too much water on a damp area. So I'm just going to let that dry, and when I come back to it, I can layer on the oranges and reds, and it'll be the brightness that I want. Right now, if I keep brushing, it's just going to get washed off lighter and lighter. So I want reds down below, and I want kind of a warm brownish orange above. So I'm going to get a little bit of yellow and white in my orange, and a little bit of brown. So the little bit of yellow and white is going to make the top of my sky a little creamier, but it's still going to be a little darker because I don't have because I have a little brown and an orange in there. So this is brown and orange, and white and yellow. Brown and orange, and a little bit of white and yellow. So this is going to be this top area of the sky. And see that tiny bit of white makes it creamy, starting to layer and get a creaminess to my sky. Now I can come in and still add some more highlight. I'm going to get some yellow and white, just plain yellow and white, and go back to my highlighted areas. Now you can turn your brush wide, or you can go long, like horizontal, so that you can get a skinny streak, or you can get a wider streak. Since it's such a small canvas, I'm going skinny, so I'm going to just use this horizontal position. Okay, so as I build up the layers, it's looking very sunsetty. Okay, so now the last little part to my sky, maybe I'll get a little bit more bright orange. So let me get a tiny bit of bright orange with just a little bit of white, yellow, and orange. This time I'm not going to add brown. Just a little bit of white, yellow, and orange. A little more orange. Okay, I just need, for these tiny canvases, I just need a little bit of paint. Okay, so I'm just brightening it up a little bit with a little bit of bright orange. Now I want to do this bottom section with a second layer of red. So I'm just going to blow dry so that it's dry. The difference between painting wet on wet, when you paint wet on wet, the paint's going to mix, which you want to get that blending. But as you do additional layers, it's better if the paint is dry, because then you can start putting paint on top of instead of mixing it with. So I don't want to mix it with anymore. Now I want to put paint on top of this paint. Okay. All right, so I'm really loving this red that I'm getting. So I'm going to get a little bit more of the fire red, and I'm going to come over the bottom of my sky. You see how it's so much more vivid with this second layer? And then just lightly fade it up into the other area of the sky just by lightly brushing it. So I'm going to get nice and vivid down here. And maybe I'll just add a little bit more yellow and white to this area here. And since that red is wet, I can pull it and let it blend a little bit. And I want a little bit of that yellow white up here. Okay, so there's my sky. All right, so now for the water, I want the water to reflect the sky, but the water can change slightly, and I'm going from the colors of that one photograph from Kurt Johnson, because that is a real photograph. I'm sure he's enhanced it maybe because he is a professional photographer. But it still has the colors that I'm looking for. And then I'm using the composition and some of the elements that are in my picture here. So this is the composition that I'm doing. All right, so I'm using the colors. I'm going to just fill this whole bottom section in with the watercolor. So the water is going to be orange. The base coat is going to be orange. And I'm going to get a little bit of yellow and white to make it a tiny bit lighter and a little more opaque. Remember that tiny bit of white makes this paint opaque. So let's get nice and fill this area up with our orange. So I got a little bit more yellow and white just to give it that creamy, opaque look. Since I did have the brown underpainting, I need a little bit of opaque yellow and white. Okay, now while this is wet, this is important. When you're doing water, you really want things to be blendy. So in order to do that, you need to do a wet on wet painting. So while I have lots of paint on here, I kind of put it on pretty thick. Now I'm going to wipe off my brush, and I'm going to add in the shadows and highlights while it's wet. So for the shadows, I'm going to do a little bit of the blue. Remember, I was going to make some interesting darks. And the blue is not meant to be blue. It's meant to be sort of a gray or a dark shadow, and it will turn muddy from the orange, so I'm letting that happen. I want that little tiny bit of mix of the two complementary colors. So getting that little bit of blue from the outside in You see how I'm pulling from the outside in? Because my sun's going to come here, so I want it to be nice and bright down under my sun, and I'm pulling in the shadows from the side. Just making some streaks. Okay, and remember, we want to try and work while it's wet, so I'm going to try and be pretty quick on this. I want to get some bright yellow-orange down the middle. So here's my sun. I'm going to do it right underneath here. You can zigzag your brush. You can lightly, holding your brush horizontal, you can lightly pull it out left and right. Let me get some more bright orange. So bright orange is going to be yellow, white, and orange. And have some of them kind of be a little longer. The key to doing this shiny section, you see how it's still mixing, so you barely see it. But the key to doing this shiny section is to have your brush really skinny, so it's chiseled. See how tiny it is? And really light touches, and you drag them out. So you go left and right. If you go very light, you'll pull them out so that they're pointy. And you can go right down to the bottom if you want. So see, I'm just going to take my chiseled brush and just make a couple little pointy ones. Get that little point. Where I see a lot of beginning painters, do this, and it looks a little bit more rough, is when they make it short and chunky. So it's more like they kind of go like this, and it's fat, and it doesn't have those little skinny points kind of going out the side, like those little tails. So you want to try and get a little of that on there. So we have to let this dry. This is a good start where it's blending in, but we can still see it a little bit. And now I'm going to work on getting a couple of bright highlights. So I did, the base coat was orange. Base coat was actually orange, yellow, and white. So we did the base coat, some of the highlights, some of the shadows. Shadows were just a little bit of ultramarine blue and making it look like it's gray. So I just kind of did a very, very light application of that blue. And now I want to get some bright spots, some bright orange on the water. So I'm going to get yellow, white, and orange. And let's just go and put some bright spots into the water. So you want to try and go very horizontal. When you're painting, it's very easy to curve, like make little like rainbows like this. So you want to go very straight. And I'm kind of going a little in between some of my blue areas. So it starts to look like ripples on the water. Okay, so do you see how I got this little bit of brighter orange now? And it makes the shadows even softer. So I soften the shadows by putting a little layer of, of orange on top. All right, so now let's get in our distant tree line. And when this dries is when we're going to get the best pop of highlights. So we still haven't added our darkest darks or our brightest brights. We've done a lot of the middle tones, a lot of the color, but now we're going to add a little bit more of the darks and the lights, and that's going to really finish it up. So let's get, I'm going to use the pointy brush this time, and I'm going to just get it a little wet so it comes to a point. And I'm going to use a, I could use black for the background trees, but I really want it to be a little bit warmer and not so flat. So I'm going to actually use red and brown, maybe just a little bit of black. So this is going to be my distant trees. I'm doing it the fire red, a little of the burnt umber, and then maybe just a dot of black. So I'm going to make my distant tree line. Because remember in the beginning I said I wanted this painting to be rich and warm. So I'm going to use the warm, even in my shadows, I'm having the warmth of the red and brown. Okay, so here's my tree line, just getting that line in there first. This is above the water. Oops, and I'm going to use my round brush and just make these little taps. See, the red that's in this is much more natural than if you did it solid black. The little bit of black I have at the bottom is dark enough. I don't need to have it solid black. So I'm doing this, look at how it's getting brown. Then I can take a little of the straight red. So I have straight red, and I can put red right at the top. And it looks like it's going to be backlit from the sun. And see, this is more advanced, but it's easy to do. I mean, if you just do a black silhouette, you can do that. But why not just add a little bit of brown and then just top off the tops of it with red? It's going to make your background trees look so much more advanced. And it's just that little easy step of making those same trees red. Okay, so now with that color, I love this brown and red. I'm going to bring it down into the lower section here. So my silhouette for my, let's get a little bit of this shadow in the water. This is the same red-brown mixture. Just putting a couple little streaks of shadow. So I'm using my pointy brush so I can get some little points. And then let's just fill in this bottom area. Now this is where you can get a little bit of black because it's closer to you. So closer to you is going to be a little bit more dense. So I'm going to get a little bit of black down at the very bottom. And I'm going to right away start switching to my red-brown silhouette. So red-brown for my ground. This is just my little grassy ground, so you can make it however you want. Just make it messy and random. I'm giving it a couple little tufts so that it's not... See, and I love the little red in there. So this is what's going to make our sunset look like it's firing up the earth. It's just putting that fire red into our silhouette. See, I love teaching simple silhouette paintings, but making it not so simple. Like, the silhouettes should almost never be just straight black. Straight black is so, it's so harsh. And it looks much more realistic if you have color in your silhouettes. The color for these silhouettes, I'm going very warm. So I'm having lots of reds and browns. Okay, so now that our sky is dry, I'm going to add our white sun. So I'm going to just get straight white at first, and I'm going to put my sun nice and big. Right there. You don't have to show all of it. See how I kind of stopped and it looks like it's hiding behind something? So that's the first layer, just getting that nice bright white in there. It's going to take a few layers of white to get super bright. Now let's get our little white highlight underneath the sun. So I'm going to go highlight underneath the sun, pointy brush. Now as you get down closer to the front, your highlights are going to be a little bit bigger and a little fatter. Because it's like you see the ripples on the water. They can be zigzaggy, and then in the background they can be smaller and much small. They can be very small. You can just tap if you want to get really tiny back there. So in the background, the light, this is just the light on the water. So if you think about it, the far away water, the light's going to be broken up more. The foreground water, the light's going to be a little bit more spread out. So we get that nice depth in there. And remember how I was talking earlier about showing that reflection of the shoreline? First actually, let's do our, well, I could do it now. I already have it on my brush. So that little highlight on the water that I liked, I'm going to put that along the bank. So this is very pointy, but very, very thin. And I like the water just on the top edge. It's going to separate the reflection of the tree line. So now we're going to do the tree line that's in the water. So I'm going to get that red and brown. And the same width of the trees. We're going to do our little reflection. Notice the reflection. I'm doing little horizontal dashes. I want to make it the same height roughly as it's a mirror image. So if it's tall here, it's going to be tall there. If it's skinny here, it's going to be skinny or non-existent here. So we can put a little bit there. So just little dashes, but in that same black, it's like there's a tiny bit of black, but it's brown and red. And that's a nice reflection of the distant trees. Okay, so I love that, and I want to add a few more highlights to my my sky and my water that are going to be in the form of a really bright yellowy orange or really bright yellow. So I'm going to get yellow and white. I'm going to try another layer because when you're doing highlights, you sometimes need several layers. They definitely can be a color that sort of keeps fading. So I'm going to add a little highlight up here and a little more highlight here. I can come into my white, add a little yellow. Now to fade this out, if you don't want it to be too, I'm going to add a little yellow to my water. Now I'm adding the yellow just to the edges of my shine, not to the middle. Just that little bit of, it's very, very thin. The paint actually, I'm putting it on very, very light. So it's not very heavy. It's almost like it's a little bit of a glaze. So there's a tiny bit of dampness to my brush so that it's just a very subtle little touch of yellow and white. Now if I want to soften the edges, I'm just going to take my brush, which is just a little bit damp. A damp brush with no paint on it can be a blending tool. See, I'm just taking it and softening up the edges. So when you have no paint, but the paint on your canvas is a little bit wet, because I just put that down, you can use it as a blending tool. So I'm going to get some bright orange. Let's get some brighter oranges to some of the sky here. I'm going to get some bright reds, so I'm going to get some red. Put a little more red in the sky. Now these are all done very thin with my brush was damp. So last layers, I call them, well, they're not, I don't call them, they're called glazes. So when you take a clean, damp brush and you take a little bit of color and you just put a little wash over your painting, that's adding a glaze. And that is one of the big secrets of a more advanced painter, is how to glaze. It takes time to practice and learn it, but it's really just a damp brush, a little bit of water on your brush, and a little bit of paint, and you can really get beautiful, subtle layers with just a little tiny bit of, you see how I'm adding a little water to the paint, so it's very thin. And I'm going to brighten up, get some red, a little bit of red in my water. So it's just water and paint, and you can add, I'm just going to add little pops of red to carry that color from the sky. I'm showing you my palette too much. So the sky is going to reflect in the water. I'm going to get a little bit of that red in the water. So damp brush, tiny bit of water on your brush, tap it on your paper towel, and with that little bit of water, it becomes almost like a little watercolor. You can add thin layers of color and just get your painting even that much more vivid. Like I'm only putting it down in this corner because it's reflecting the sky here. Okay, so there's our, I'm going to get a little more red down here too. All right, so look at that, we're firing it up. And I added a little yellow to my moon, I mean to my sun rather, but now that it's dry, I wanted the center to be absolutely bright white. So I'm going to get a little bit more white in the middle. And that's going to make it look like it's really like glowing. So I left a little yellow around the edge. So just to recap, this sun has 3 layers. The first layer was white. That's just to kind of like get the second layer was white and yellow. That was to give it a warm glow. Now that dried. And then the third layer is straight white right in the middle to sit right on top and stay white. But I didn't go all the way out to the edges. I left the edges a little yellow still. And now my sun looks like it has a light source. I can add little dots and sparkles to the water now too. straight white in a tiny little dots. I love when the sun sparkles on the water. So little white dots to sparkle. Who doesn't like sparkles? The sparkles can go off away from your shine marks, your little shiny reflections here. They can kind of go wider and all over like that. Okay, so there's our little sparkles on the water. Now I could use a smaller brush, but I'm just using this number 6 and it's working out fine. Okay, so now I'm going to do the grasses and then we're done. So for the grasses, I'm going to use a little bit of black, but I want it to be mostly brown and red, just like our other silhouettes. Now the difference between this silhouette is it's far away, and then the one close to us, the grasses and the cattails, those can be a little darker because things that are closer to you are typically brighter or deeper or higher contrast. So we can get a little bit higher contrast by having a little bit more black. So let's see, I want a couple of cattails. Cattails are going to be straight. I want some straight. Cattails usually grow pretty straight. And I'm going to stagger them. I want the staggering of the cattails to be natural, so I want to have different heights and different distances from each other. Okay, so that's good. And let's just do the thin little stalk. When you do something thinner, you want to flatten your brush by tapping it on one side, flipping it over, tap it on the other side, and then you get it chiseled. So it's very skinny. And you can either do a swoosh or you can brace your pinky against your painting and then you can just do a little tiny line. So you don't want to go too thick. It's better to have a line that is barely visible than a really thick one. So just go really light and small. Now for the actual leaves, let's get a tiny bit of water. So it's very important when you do grasses that you have water in your paint so that your paint is very fluid. So then you can just go flick. So I'm going to hold my brush against the canvas where there's the land, and then I'm just going to flick upward and get nice different little grasses, hopefully. Do you see how it kind of ran out there? So I'm going to just reload and just do that one again. So I'm letting the brush go up and pulling up and letting it just disappear into a tiny little string. So there's my little cluster. Now if you have a liner, I would suggest you use a liner for this because you're going to have a lot more success if you're new to painting. Because while you can do it with the number 6, you can flatten it out and chisel it, but you need to be very careful with your pressure. And the pressure you put down is something that beginning painters struggle with a little bit more, controlling your pressure. So let me get a liner and show you how. So here's a number 2 liner, and you can see the bristles are really long. So this is going to help me to get wispy grass. So let me get a little bit of my watered down brown, black, red mixture. Now again, I can use a little more black because I am closer to the foreground, but I'm going to add reds to my silhouettes also. Now now that it's watered down and it's very thin, let's practice a little bit. You want to hold your brush kind of far back, and then I like to just do really light flicks. So practice right above your paper, and then move down slowly until your brush hits the paper. And then you know where to stop your hand there, and you can see how the thin water makes these nice grasses. Okay, so you load up your brush with thin paint. You're going to hold it above the paper, move it first, just get the motion down, then get closer and closer until you start to hit the paper. And try and make long ones and short ones. So short, and then try and do some long. Okay, and then you'll get some very natural looking grasses. All right, so now let's go to our canvas, now that we practiced a little bit. So I'm going to first do it above my canvas, and then I'm going to hit the canvas and hope for the best. So I wanted to kind of leave some open space there. So I just want a little bit of stuff there, and then I'm going to try and get a really long one up here. There we go. So you can always get long and short. So I want to have some shorties down here. So let's get some little like random foliage. Looks more natural when you have a little bit of mess back down there, but not all these perfect grasses. So I got a little bit of, you know, just random messiness down there. I can have little short grasses down here too. The little tufts. And I'm going to put the tufts that are going to be here, I'm going to be doing them in more red-orange. So I'm going to have a red-orange, the little feathers on the top. They're going to be red-orange because the light is shining through them. So just making little feathers. I'm going to have a big feather up here, so I'm going to get a little bit darker, just a little. And we're going to put some little feathers down here. Whoops. And don't forget some low ones too. Let's get some, I'm going to put a tiny bit of black in the middle of my feathers. Whoops, that's too much. A little too much black on that one. So I'm making them a little bit black in the middle just to give them a little bit of, so this one I got a little too much black on, so I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm just going to put a little more red on top because I didn't want it to be that black. And I'm going to add some little more shorties. Maybe some over here. I'll do a little skinny one here. So they don't all have to be the same height or the same darkness. So like some can be dark and then some can be further away and smaller. So because remember there's grasses close to you and far away and closer to the water. All those various distances change how the grasses are. So they're not all equal. Some are going to be dark, some are going to be light. On these cattails I need a little tiny spike. Little. And and you can always add a little darker paint. So I'm darkening them up slowly, but I like the reds in the grasses. So let's get some nice reds in there.
Hello, Mom.
Hello, I'm doing a live. I'm almost done though. So I'm taking straight red, and I'm going to, remember, put red here on this guy. And I'm going to do a little bit more red on this. So the red, I love the red or straight orange on these little grasses. It looks like the sun is just lighting them up. So this is a much more interesting silhouette than just a black silhouette. I even put some red on my cattails. And you can add some additional reds to your ground, just for like some little oranges and reds down here. So there's interest in the shadows, and that's what makes it, I think, a better silhouette than just black. All right, so that's it, we're done. And the only thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish the edges. And I'm going to do that with black, because I do have a little bit of black near the bottom, but notice there's not a lot of solid black on the painting. That's what I want to stress, is that you can make a super simple silhouette with blending, but where I think I showed you how to maybe take it to the next level is to use a damp brush with a little bit of water on it, and when your first few layers are dry, then you can even enhance those colors even more with a thin layer of glazing. You can glaze a little bit of red, or you can glaze a little bit of yellow and white. And then your shadows. So silhouettes don't have to be straight black. This painting is very warm, so our silhouettes were red hot. They were like brown and reds, which makes them look like they're glowing from the sun. So you do have a couple of blacks in the foreground, but for the most part, you also have these beautiful reds along these grassy silhouettes that gives it a more of a natural glow. Okay, so for the sides, I just take the black and I like to do it right when I'm done with my painting, because the paint, of course, I usually have black on my palette already. And I just take a little bit of water and black, and using a flat brush, I just go side to side, right up to the edge, but not over it. And by using the side of the brush, you keep those edges nice and crisp. Now, if you want to make your sides kind of match your painting, you can make it a reddish black. So I can always do that, and then it's not quite so harsh. So you can make like a brown, red, black mixture. Make that your side color. So this is celebrating summer right here, summer sunsets. And if you're interested in trying out the inner circle, there's always going to be lots of improvements and changes as we grow, finding all new ways to make it more fun, make it easier, and make the painting process just overall more rewarding. And we have, as soon as you join, you get access to not only the paintings we do live during the summer, but also to the past paintings that are stored in the Facebook page. So that Facebook page is our clubhouse, and only members can access the private Facebook page, where we share our paintings, where we share inspiration, where we watch the lives in that group as well. And the videos for now are stored there for you to access 24/7. So you can start painting any of the paintings in our gallery, in our library, the first day you join, actually. There's all of our minis are stored in our membership group. All of our off the easel lessons are stored there, and our large 16 by 20 paintings. But I think the most fun is just painting together and getting to know people in the group, seeing everyone's paintings posted, posting your paintings, and knowing that you have a nice supportive group to share your accomplishments with. I think that's my favorite part. And there we go. Okay, so that one is done. It's so pretty and summery. Color was kind of the main goal on this painting, and I think that we did an amazing colorful sunset. Wouldn't the blue on the edge complement? Oh yeah, we could put a little blue on the edge also. I mean, like blue into the black mixture. That's something really pretty to try. You could totally add like a dark blue black. Maybe you wouldn't even see the blue. It might just be very subtle in the black, but it might also be a nice complement. But I just decided to kind of carry almost like my dark shadow here onto the edges. So it's kind of like a black with a brown red, and it's not straight black. It's kind of cool. All right, well, have a wonderful rest of your Monday. And if you are watching this and you are a member, please share on your Facebook page and let everybody know all the beautiful paintings you make. And I will see everybody. I think the next time we're painting live is going to be Wednesday for Off the Easel. And you guys have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye, Jody.